Margaret had been awake for a long time, so she opened the window and settled back into bed. She could not bring herself to get up. How wonderful that she could take her time today. On this day off, she had the luxury of lying in bed, as her husband David had left on a business trip the day before. She rolled over onto her other side, felt the fresh air fill the room, and closed her eyelids again. Family life gave her great joy. In the 6 years she'd been married to David, they'd never had a single conflict, and their feelings for each other grew stronger every day. Before getting married, she and her husband decided to enjoy life together and build a solid foundation for the future well-being of their children. Their life was filled with joy and travel. They explored many countries, immersing themselves in a variety of cultures. As a highly educated professional, David did not miss opportunities for self-improvement even while on vacation. He studied market trends and interacted with successful entrepreneurs, learning from their experience about the intricacies of business. After all, in the relaxed atmosphere of a vacation, people tend to share secrets and ideas that remain behind the scenes in a normal business environment. A year ago, Margaret and her husband greeted the news of her pregnancy with great joy. But 2 months later, while walking from the store to the parking lot, she slipped and fell, resulting in the loss of the baby. The doctors insisted that she take a year off before trying to conceive again, at which time she would need to be tested again. Margaret has an important doctor's appointment tomorrow afternoon, and then David would be back in 3 days. She was tired of his frequent business trips. She did not understand why he was personally involved in matters that could be handled by his assistants. But she consoled herself with the thought that all difficulties were temporary. Despite her morning laziness, it was impossible to ignore her body's urges, and the urge to drink coffee, which she preferred with milk in the morning, was growing stronger. Margaret got up quickly and went for her morning jog, then brewed herself a cup of coffee. Then she drank it slowly, savoring each sip. But her peace was interrupted by an unexpected phone call from her friend Helen. Margaret sighed in annoyance, expecting another complaint about William. Ever since they'd broken up 2 months ago and he'd left her for someone else, Helen had never been able to calm down and was determined to win him back at any cost. "Hi, Helen. What's up? Why are you calling so early?" "Hello, Margaret. We are friends, aren't we?" "Helen, of course we're friends. Tell me exactly what it is you want." "I have an appointment with a famous fortune teller today. Let's go together." "I'm afraid to go alone." "What fortune teller?" "She's a psychic. She's going to tell me everything about William." "Please don't say no. You know how important this is to me." "You know, I'll go with you. I'll take you to her. Maybe she finally tell you something so you'll calm down and stop torturing yourself." "When are we going?" "I'll pick you up at noon." "Helen, you never cease to amaze me." "That's an hour from now, and I just woke up." "Why didn't you call yesterday?" "I would have had time to prepare. A colleague told me just half an hour ago that a psychic was free. She made an appointment for me. This psychic usually has an appointment a month in advance, if not more. They say she always tells the truth." "Okay, I'll be at the front door at 12. Margaret quickly freshened up in the shower, then styled her hair. Then she dressed, put on some makeup, and waited at the door at the appointed time. Helen arrived at 12 sharp in her Mini. She was excited and chatted the whole way, which fortunately didn't take long. They parked and Helen glanced at her watch and grabbed Margaret's hand and pulled her towards the house. The clairvoyant lived in a 2-story house. The door opened as if she had been expecting them. She was a neat and friendly woman in her 50s. "Did you come with support?" she joked. Helen nodded. "Come in. You sit in the chair by the table and you sit on the couch." The psychic turned to Margaret. Margaret sat down on the couch, very skeptical. She had never believed in such things. Tiffany, the psychic, turned to her. "My name is Tiffany, and I'm not an actress, so there's not going to be a show. Believe it or not, it's up to you." Margaret was taken aback. Tiffany turned away from Margaret and was already talking to Helen. She took her hand and looked into her eyes and said, "You can't be so open with men. A woman must remain a mystery. You reveal yourself to everyone without stopping to talk. Your husband is tired of your endless stories and has found a quiet companion. She is older than him, but he is happy with her and will not return to you. You will meet the man who is meant for you, but first you must learn to keep secrets. Do you understand?" she asked a crying Helen. "Yes. Doesn't William love me?" The psychic shook her head. "When will I meet my husband?" "Within a year, I think. You'll meet him at an event. He'll be 7 years older than you. He's a serious man, and you should be on his level, more mature and serious. That's it. I'm done. Goodbye." As she escorted them to the exit, the psychic touched Margaret's shoulder and said cryptically, "Accept what is to come. In a year and a half you will be a mother and everything in your life will be fine. If you push her away, you'll be in trouble. In a few days, remember what I said, think about it, and try to forgive them." "What are you talking about, Tiffany?" "You'll know soon enough. Excuse me, ladies, but I have my next customer. Goodbye." A tearful Helen looked at Margaret in confusion. What did she mean by that? "I wish I knew. It's all nonsense, just like you're clairvoyant." In the evening, Margaret received a phone call from David. His voice sounded sad. He said he would be late for 2 days because of urgent matters. The next day, Margaret saw a gynecologist who examined her and referred her for tests. On Thursday morning, she was on her way to the clinic when she heard a key turn in the door lock. She ran to the door, and when it opened, Margaret was dazed with surprise. Her husband entered the hall with a boy in his arms who looked remarkably like him. He set his suitcase on the floor, sadness and guilt in his eyes. The boy put his arms around his neck and looked curiously at Margaret. "I'll explain everything. Please hear me out before you jump to conclusions," David said. He put the boy down and turned to him. "Kevin, we're home. Let's go into the kitchen and have some tea." "Dad, are we staying here?" "Dad?" Margaret was astonished. "Is this your son?" "I'll explain. Let's feed Kevin first. He's hungry." "Is there anything to eat?" Margaret nodded and headed for the kitchen. The boy followed her and asked, "Margaret, what are you going to give me to eat?" "I'm so hungry my stomach hurts." But first David told him to wash his hands. Margaret took a pot roast, David's favorite, out of the refrigerator, put it on plates, and heated it in the microwave, all on automatic. Oh, pot roast. I love it so much. The boy began to eat with enthusiasm. "Margaret, please forgive me, but there was only one time in the first year I started the company. It was the first time I went on a business trip to negotiate with suppliers. I met my first love there by chance. We were students at the university and we became friends in the second year. But then her parents died and then left her studies and went back to her hometown, where her younger sister stayed to be raised. We talked and corresponded for a while, and then she got married and I met her and fell in love with her, and that was it. And when I met her again, she was no longer living with her husband and invited me to visit. We sat and reminisced about our college days, and I stayed with her, and that night she came to me. No matter how many times I traveled, I never saw her again. And on this trip, I met her sister Katie and Kevin on the street. When he saw me, he shouted, "Katie, Katie, look, there's my daddy. He found me." I was shocked to see how much the baby looked like me, and he clung to me and wouldn't let go. I asked Kathy about it, and it turned out that she had been hit by a car in the winter. Kathy didn't know where to find me, so she took custody of Kevin. He recognized me from a picture Kathy showed him and told him that Daddy would find him. And didn't even try to find me. She wanted a baby of her own and was very happy when she found out she was pregnant after our night together. Her sister told me. She adored her son. That's the story. If you can forgive me and understand me and hopefully accept Kevin, we'll be fine. I promise you. He's a wonderful boy. And Kevin, who had eaten the roast, got up from his chair, walked over to her, looked up at her, and asked, "Will you take us in?" And then the psychic's words flashed through Margaret's mind. And despite the pain of betrayal, which was hard to accept at once, she overcame herself and crouched down beside Kevin. The little boy hugged her immediately. "Of course I will," she said, wiping away her tears. A year and a half later, Margaret gave birth to a daughter named Amy, a sister for Kevin.